Over in Paris, South Korean boxer Lee Ji clinched the first Olympic medal in Korea's female boxing history. And in table tennis, Shin Yubin is facing off against China's Chen Meng this evening at the semi-finals. The inflation index stayed within the 2% range in July for the fourth straight month, but concerns remain over high prices of oil and fruits. The benchmark Kospi tumbled by well over 3% on Friday on fears of a U.S. economic slowdown, while the secondary Kosdaq lost more than 4%. It's August 2nd, 6 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We start in Paris, where Team Korea is making more history at the Summer Games, especially in women's boxing and badminton. For more, we connect live to our sports reporter, Choi Soo-hyung. Soo-hyung, first of all, what can you tell us about the women's boxing event?
Good evening. Right, Jungmin, Lee Ji will bring home South Korea's very first Olympic medal in women's boxing. On Thursday evening local time, she beat Colombia's Yanni Arias by 3-2 in the quarterfinals. As Olympic boxing does not play a bronze medal match, Im has secured at least a bronze in the women's 54 kilograms category. The 25-year-old will also win Team Korea its first boxing medal in 12 years. Since Han Sun-cheol won silver in the men's 60 kilograms at London 2012. Im will face Hatise Akbas of Turkey in the semi-finals on Sunday local time. Moving over to badminton, South Korea's Kim Won-ho and Jung Na-eun defeated compatriots Seo Seung-jae and Chae Yu-jung 2-1 in the mixed doubles semi-finals on Thursday. Seo and Chae are currently ranked second in the world, making Kim and Jung's victory quite surprising. Kim and Jung are now set to face the world's #1 pair Zheng Si-wei and Heng Ya-chung of China in the gold medal match later tonight, Korean time. Seo and Chae will compete for the bronze medal against Yuta Watanabe and Arisa Higashino of Japan. If Kim and Jung win, they will have secured a first gold in this event since Lee Yong-dae and Lee Hyo-jung at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. In table tennis, just finished a few minutes ago, Team Korea's Shin Yubin lost to China's Chen Meng in the women's singles semi-final. The match, which started at 5 p.m. Korean time on Friday, ended with Chen Meng winning 4-0. In the quarterfinals the day before, Shin Yubin defeated Japan's Miu Hirano 4-3 to become the first South Korean to reach a women's singles table tennis semi-final in 20 years. If Shin wins the bronze medal match tomorrow, it will be the first singles medal in the sport for Korea in 20 years since Yu Seung-min's men's gold and Kim Kyung-a's women's bronze in Athens. Other exciting games await us this weekend. All 6 of Korea's archers who proved themselves as the world's best by sweeping the gold medals in both the men's and women's team events have smoothly advanced to the round of 16 in their individual events. On Thursday, Korean time, Im Si-hyun, Chun Hoon-young, and Nam Soo-hyun will all compete in the round of 16 matches. Additionally, the women's world #1 badminton player An Se-young will face Japan's Akane Yamaguchi on the same day in the battle for a ticket to reach the semi-final. That's all I have for now. Let's take a look at the medal standings.
Findings for the month of July show Korea's inflation holding steady within the 2% range, but concerns remain over high prices of oil and fruits. Moon Hye-ryun reports.
Consumer prices in South Korea are beginning to stabilize, with inflation hovering in the 2% range for 4 months straight. Data from Statistics Korea on Friday showed that the country's consumer price index, a key gauge of inflation, rose 2.6% in July compared to the same month the year before. Core inflation, excluding volatile food and energy prices, came to 2.2%, while the index measuring 144 daily necessities rose 3%. Compared to the month before, the consumer price index was higher last month than in June, but core inflation remained the same as prices of petroleum jumped. In July, oil prices rose by 8.4% year-on-year, which is the biggest hike seen in nearly 2 years. A spokesperson from the agency attributed this to several factors.
Oil prices increased as a result of the fuel tax cuts being scaled back and global crude oil prices rising. The base effect of low oil prices last year could also have had an effect.
Prices of fresh produce continue to climb, particularly for fruit and vegetables, as a result of poor weather conditions such as the heavy rain affecting yields. The price of pears saw the biggest growth ever recorded as it surged by more than 150% year-on-year. Vegetables such as lettuce, spinach and cabbage saw sharp gains on month, prompting the Agricultural Ministry to respond with urgent measures. Speaking at a meeting to discuss these latest figures, the Vice Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs pledged to monitor the situation closely and strengthen on-site communication. The government has been supplying the market with up to 200 tons of cabbage per day since July 3rd, and plans to increase this to 250 tons by mid to late August to stabilize supply and demand. The senior presidential secretary for economic affairs also gave a briefing on Friday afternoon, stating that the government will do its utmost to stabilize prices and that it expects inflation to plateau in the low to mid 2% range from this month. Moon-Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
South Korea's stock markets were sharply down on Friday, with benchmark Kospi ending below the 2,700 level on fears of a U.S. economic slowdown. Lee Soo-jin explains.
The South Korean stock market tumbled on Friday as U.S. stocks fell on growing concerns of an economic slump. The country's benchmark Kospi closed at 2,676, down 3.65% from the previous day. This drop, mostly driven by massive sell-offs by foreign investors and institutions, marks the first time since early June that the Kospi ended below the 2,700 level. The tech-heavy Kosdaq also fell by 4.2% to end at 779. The fall comes as weak U.S. economic data and the Federal Reserve's restrictive monetary policy put all three major U.S. indexes under heavy selling pressure on Thursday local time. The latest data released by the U.S. Institute for Supply Management on Thursday showed that manufacturing PMI dropped to 46.8 in July, the lowest figure recorded in 8 months. And the employment sub-index of the manufacturing PMI also fell to the lowest level since June 2020, right after the COVID-19 pandemic. The U.S. Central Bank's Federal Open Market Committee also kept interest rates steady during its latest rate decision meeting. In a press conference on Wednesday, U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said that if inflation continues to come into line with the central bank's 2% target, a rate cut could be possible in the Fed's next meeting in September.
And, I would say to Jay Powell, careful what you wish for, my friend. You were fighting for the 2% inflation. Well, to get to 2%, there's collateral damage. And collateral damage is a slowing of the economy. So market's starting to get a little nervous.
The benchmark S&P 500 fell nearly 1.4% from the previous day, the Nasdaq 2.3%, and the Dow Jones 1.2% on the first day of August. As for the domestic stock market, according to one expert, the downward trend may continue.
The market is expected to remain volatile for the time being, and in the long term, the economic slump in the U.S. is expected to exacerbate the downward pressure on the stock market.
He added that other factors such as the recent AI stock plunge may impact the domestic stock market negatively as well. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
The strategy to securing high income status includes investment, infusion, and innovation. Now, that's according to the World Bank in its latest guidebook, whose officials say South Korea is a classic example. Kim Bo-kyung covers this assessment.
The World Bank has come up with a 21st century playbook for high-quality growth, but the country is hitting what's called the middle-income trap. This refers to a situation in which a middle-income country experiences systematic growth slowdowns, unable to take on the new economic structures needed to sustain high income levels. Usually, countries hit the trap at about 10% of annual U.S. GDP per person, around $8,000. The issue is also closely related to the global economy.
It's these emerging middle-income countries that have high shares of the global GDP. Once they start growing, they can pull up the rest of the global economy. It's these middle-income countries right now are 60% of global emissions. How they grow will matter, because if they grow in the way that they're not energy efficient and they don't lower carbon intensity of growth, there will be a global crisis.
The problem is that many middle-income countries face bigger challenges than before. Rapidly aging populations, high debt, rising protectionism, and the need to consider reducing emissions. Thus, the World Bank proposes its 3I strategy. Low-income countries need to focus on investment first, expanding investment in physical capital, education, and infrastructure firms. Once lower middle-income status is obtained, they need to adopt technologies from abroad and spread them across the economy. Innovation comes last, developing industrial structures and technical competencies to add value to and advance the global technology frontier. The same expert says South Korea is a standout example, as the country successfully went through the phases within a period of 40 years. South Korea worked on reforms to encourage investment, especially in education, asked large conglomerates, including Samsung, to infuse cutting-edge technologies into the production process, and then focused on frontier innovation, changing the economic course at the right time. Just taking a look at South Korea's case could be helpful for middle-income countries, but more could be done.
Is to have many more partnerships between leading Korean firms and emerging market firms, is to create these licensing and technology sharing relationships with other middle-income countries. Because I think that's going to be a channel that will be an important conduit for knowledge transfer. But the foundations of Korean development was education. And how did Korea manage to have full primary, full secondary, technical education, and how did they maintain quality? I think lessons for that and tailoring those ideas and working with policy makers in emerging economies would be very useful.
Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
On the international front, an extraordinary exchange of prisoners took place between the West and Russia, involving 24 detainees. Park Gon-woo has the details.
A historic prisoner exchange of 24 detainees between 7 Western countries, including the U.S. and Russia, was made on Thursday. That's the largest since the post-Soviet era. 16 people who were held in Russian detention were released to the West in exchange for 8 Russians. 3 U.S. citizens, including Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich and former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan, were released under the deal. The swap is a result of months of negotiations between several countries involved, including the U.S., Germany, and Russia. The release of convicted Russian assassin Vadim Krasikov, who was serving a life sentence in Germany, was one of Russia's main requests and key to making the deal happen. Russian President Vladimir Putin visited the airport to welcome the returning Russians, including Krasikov. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday thanked Washington's allies by calling it a feat of diplomacy.
The deal that made this possible was a feat of diplomacy and friendship. Multiple countries helped get this done. They joined the difficult, complex negotiations at my request, and I personally thank them all again.
He added that the U.S. will continue to make efforts to free all wrongfully detained Americans around the world. Also on Thursday, former U.S. President Donald Trump downplayed the deal, raising doubts that a massive amount of money would have been paid to Russia. But the White House said that no such money was sent and restrictions were lifted to conclude the exchange. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
The U.S. is convinced Iran is going to attack Israel within days in retaliation for the assassination of Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran earlier this week. That's according to U.S. online news outlet Axios on Thursday, citing U.S. officials, adding that the Biden administration is preparing to counter it. The officials have said they started receiving clear indications that an Iranian revenge attack was imminent. In response, the Pentagon and U.S. Central Command are making similar preparations to those they made ahead of Iran's attack on Israel in April. The revenge attack could be larger in scope and possibly involve Hezbollah assets in Lebanon. North Korea has not responded to the government's offer to send humanitarian aid for flood victims near the Amnokgang River. Ministry of Unification Deputy Spokesperson Kim In-ae told reporters on Friday that no response has come from the North regarding the humanitarian aid offer. She said the government is making 2 phone calls a day using the existing communication channel, which the North hasn't answered since last April. On Thursday, Seoul made an offer just a few days after North Korea reported severe flood damage in cities and counties adjacent to the Amnokgang River. In other news, the Korean wave is drawing more fans from all over the world, mostly driven by K-pops and K-dramas. Our Yoon-hee explores how this wave has touched people's lives and inspired many to consider South Korea their dream destination.
Monica Mok, a 26-year-old social media influencer from Mexico, first discovered Korean culture in 2018 when she began listening to BTS.
It started with K-pop and then eventually started moving to Korean dramas, Korean culture, Korean skincare, Korean style, and all the different things that involve the Korean wave.
When she made friends and discovered communities that shared her passion for K-pop, she found a new focus for her social media content. She saw how the Korean wave has deeply influenced so many people, creating a vibrant connection between Latin America and South Korea, and she dreams of experiencing it up close. According to a Korea Foundation report, in 2023, Mexico, leading Korean wave fan growth, had seen an 80% increase from the previous year, ranking 2nd overall.
Doing dance covers, meeting new people that love what I do and what they also love doing, and we can share that, has been an amazing experience that also kind of gives me more things to do with my life and more to live for.
In July, Monica and her dance team won first place in their very first K-pop cover contest. In the coming years, she plans to compete in higher-level contests where winners earn a trip to South Korea.
I know that this opportunity leads to other opportunities that might give us another type of job or another type of opportunities that we can go through and eventually maybe even go to Korea, represent Mexico or represent our country through dancing or through doing what we love.
Homeira Rasoli's story began when a Korean friend she met in Afghanistan introduced her to Korean culture, an experience she now considers one of her greatest blessings. However, after the Taliban took over the government of Afghanistan 3 years ago, her family was forced to flee to Pakistan. Now, at 20 years old, she dreams of visiting Korea to pursue a career in journalism.
It was my biggest dream since my childhood to become a glorious journalist, and that was my biggest dream, and still it is. I will never give up all of problems I have. I will never give up.
Homeira finds Korea's history deeply inspiring, especially its fight for freedom during Japanese colonial rule, as it resonates with the challenges in her own country.
I love about the culture, the language, the people, the history I've learned, and a lot from Korean people because of their history. They are such a resilient people, and they are so strong. They never accept the failure, and they were my source of motivation and my hard times.
This has fueled her hopes of similar strength in her home country, especially for Afghan women who are excluded from society and denied basic rights, such as going to school, the park, or restaurants.
No matter where I am, which country I am, I will raise the voice of women. I will tell the facts about Afghanistan, about the situation of Afghanistan, about the security situation. I will tell to the world, all of people around the world, I will tell.
The situation in Pakistan is no better, with immigrants facing barriers when it comes to employment and education. Despite these struggles, Humaira is focusing on her own studies and hopes to learn Korean in a more formal setting. During these difficult days, K-pop has been a major source of strength for her, with songs like D-Day by Suga and Still With You by Jungkook providing support and encouragement.
They always say in your lyrics that never give up, you're the best, what gender you are, with country you're the best, and those are words that come in my mind. It's not just my dream, but it's just my target in these years. I want to come, if I can, I want to apply for universities, especially for Yonsei University.
Their journeys are far from complete. Monica envisions a new cultural wave emerging from the blend of Korean and Latin influences. Humaira aspires to one day advocate for women in Afghanistan through her work as a journalist. Though their journeys may differ, they all see South Korea as their dream destination and hope it will bring a new chapter filled with opportunities and exciting experiences. Lee Eun-hee, Arirang News.
With rain in central areas and showers in the southern parts today, the humid heat continues. Sporadic rain here and there, only increasing humidity levels. Seoul has also been recording tropical nights for 12 days in a row. Heat day and night is expected to continue for 10 days more. With a heatwave warning in place in most parts of the country, Seoul will move up to 33 degrees Celsius tomorrow. Showers will pass tomorrow in the southern regions and the eastern parts of the country on Sunday. A severe heatwave crisis warning level, the highest possible, is in place nationwide. It will be hot tomorrow morning all over the country. Highs will move up to 35 in Gwangju, Daegu 36, Gyeongju 37 degrees. This heat wave will continue nationwide for a while. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.